Good afternoon, colleagues. We're back from recess. We're still on second reading, and we will begin with Bill number 57-37 COR. Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I'd like to motion to place Bill number 57-37 COR to the bottom of the second reading file. Thank you.
On the motion to place the bill on the bottom of the second reading, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Proceeding in the second reading file, we're on Bill number 97-37 COR. Senator Kanata, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill number 97-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture, an act to transfer lot number 106-1, Block 12, Municipality of Inalahan, formerly known as the Inalahan Baptist Church, to Guam Preservation Trust on the third reading file, and I would like to discuss it.
On the motion, please proceed.
I stand before you to discuss the important matter concerning our shared heritage. The focus of this legislation lies on the historic Inalahan Baptist Church, a Spanish-style structure that has stood as a cornerstone of our cultural history. However, this monument is in a dire need of restoration, and to address this bill plans to transfer its jurisdiction from the Nevis Flores Memorial Library to the Guam Preservation Trust. This move will enable the trust to undertake essential stabilization and restoration work, ensuring that the church has longevity for the future generations. It is our collective responsibility to protect such cultural treasures, and I am confident that this bill will contribute to culture and social vibrancy of Inalahan Village. I seek my colleagues' support on this journey of heritage preservation and our community's enhancement. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Taitagui, you are recognized.
One second. I'm just going to check something. Madam Speaker, if I may ask the author of the legislation, the bill was amended, and what was changed in the bill?
Would the author yield to that question?
I believe Madam Speaker was the oversight chair on this legislation, and I think in her committee she had to clarify some land classification. Yes. I guess Madam Speaker will ask for a 1-minute recess real quick.
We'll take a short recess. Senator Kanata, you are recognized. Oh, okay. Speaker Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you. So Senator Taitzugui had the floor, and she asked a question, but on a point of information, I think I do have some information. So this bill came through our committee, and we had a hearing, and there were several things that changed in the bill based on the hearing. Sorry. There were some things that we were unable to confirm as well. So one of the things that we changed was we added a section to page 3 of the bill. It's a paragraph on section 2 at the end that says that title, after the Guam Preservation Trust is done with their work, the title would be restored to the Inalahan Municipal Planning Council. It will be transferred back to them. That was one. We had tried to pursue and determine whether the lot was free and clear from any encumbrance, because there was testimony by land management as to that the property used to belong to Dr. Ernesto Espadon. He donated the lot to the library for its historic value, and that there was a public law that all properties of the library became Government of Guam properties, and so that's why the title now reads Government of Guam. But still, this bill would effectuate the transfer without any issue to the Guam Preservation Trust. And so because of that extra paragraph, it will now go back, it will go to the Municipal Planning Council, even though they never had title to it. What we could not confirm, despite letters back and forth to land management and the Guam Preservation Trust, was whether this lot number encompasses the any parts of the Gefpago village, or the chief statue right behind it. Gada, yeah, Chief Gada, that one. So because if you look at the pictures, it looks like they might be on the same lot, but we were unable to confirm that. They have not confirmed that in writing. So that's it. So the exemption in the bill, we changed section 2017 to 2107. Those were council's corrections. We changed the words on section 2 of the bill from jurisdictional authority just to a transfer. And I think that's about it. No, I'm sorry, there's more. The paragraph I just cited in section 2, there's a paragraph right before it that says the land and building that comprise the Inalahan Baptist Church in the village of Inalahan is transferred to the Guam Preservation Trust for the purpose to stabilize the standing facade of the ruins and eventually restore the Inalahan Baptist Church to its original structure. That was also added. Apparently that's the purpose after the hearing. Yeah, thank you. Senator, I hope
Madam
that
Speaker.
answers your question.
Senator Taitzugui, does that satisfy your request?
Thank you, and I greatly appreciate those answers, because there was a huge concern. You know, Mr. Speaker, when I was living in Inalahan, grew up in Inalahan, I lived right across the street, well, to the left of the, across the street of the Baptist church. And when I was a young girl, I used to play in that church. So I was concerned too, because I had an aunt who also lived across the street who owned the property there as well. And it's the land there that's concerning. Who owns this property? And, you know, I do understand that it's not quite clear. And we all know, if anybody's ever dealt with land and trying to find out who owns what, it takes quite a bit of time to determine that. But, you know, that church doesn't have a whole lot of time left right now. It's falling apart. It's even falling on the streets as people drive by. It's just crumbling. And now's the time to start, securing the infrastructure of that building to make it safe. And the Guam Preservation Trust has funding available to do so, which means it's going to have to come out of the hands of the people of Inalahan to hand it over to them, and because they don't have the funding to do so at this time. So that's why it brought me some additional comfort knowing that once the building has been secured and preserved, then it'll go back to the Municipal Council of Inalahan, to the people of Inalahan. It's one of the greatest points of Inalahan everybody remembers, the old abandoned Baptist church. Everyone in the village knows where that is. My other concern was that the Guam Preservation Trust had these ideas of going in there once it's completed to start selling items. It was brought up during the public hearing, things that they make or crafts within the church. I think that's something for the village of Inalahan should decide upon. What should happen to that church once it's been completed? It's in their village. People have grown up to learn to love that building, and I think they should have a say on what should happen in that church, not the Guam Preservation Trust. Though I'm very grateful for all the work they've done and how they're going to protect that area as well as keep it safe while they're constructing the building. So I do stand in support and greatly appreciate the committee chair for recognizing the mayor as well as the municipal council's concerns, and it was incorporated in the bill. However, there's still that concern about the property ownership in that area. So in the meantime, I think what we need to do right now is just to secure that and keep it safe for anybody driving by, or, sometimes kids go play in that area. I know I did when I was young, played in that area, so it can be very dangerous right now. But then again, it wasn't crumbling when I was there. So I thank you and ask to be a co-sponsor of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. On the bill, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the bill? Senator St. Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker. I'm in support of the bill, but I got some reservation on page 3. Let me see. Page 3 under line 15. I'm going to introduce an amendment. I'm just getting my staff to put it together to strike out in the event the Inalahan Municipal Plan determines the future they no longer have a need. I'm in support of transferring it to the Inalahan Municipal Plan Council and let it stay there. Not that when later on they determine they don't need it, it's going to go to Chamorro Land Trust. No. Keep it in Iran, handle it, take care of it. If later in the next 10 or 20 years they want to move it somewhere else, let them figure it out. This is something that it maintains that heritage in Iran, in Inalahan, and let it be there. And if anybody wants to talk about Inalahan, my wife is from Iran. My wife is a Chagalaf from Iran, so I can speak on her behalf to make sure it stays in Iran. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But I do have an amendment being proffered. As soon as staff is done, I'll route it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator St. Augustine. We're going to take a short recess to, okay. Got to get the amendment. We'll just get the amendment ready. Thank you. We're back. Senator St. Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment has been passed around. It's found on page 3, line 15 to 19. You'll notice that it's to strike out in the event the NLR Municipal Planning Council determines in the future, strike all that out until the end of that sentence. Right before section 3, that whole paragraph. And shouldn't be an issue. NLR will take care of their business, and they've been doing well for many years. They need to, once they get ownership, it's on them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator St. Augustine. On the amendment, Senator Tydegui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand in support of this. That's kind of what I mentioned earlier. My concern in ensuring that it goes back to the people of Inalahan. You know, there's really no need for this language. It goes back to them once it's completed. And Mr. Chair, you know, Inalahan receives $150,000 every year from the tipping fees. It was the host community bill that was introduced in the 30th Guam Legislature that allowed them this funding. And then actually we're supposed to revisit that because they're supposed to get a little bit more as time goes on, an increase. And the same thing for Ora Chalampago that they receive. So it's not like they don't have a steady income of funding other than what comes from this body through the general fund, but they do receive that money, and that money can be utilized for maintenance of the building to ensure that it stays in a pristine, sound structural church. So I stand in support of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tydegui. On the amendment, the St. Augustine amendment, is there anyone else? Speaker Terlai?
Thank you. I have no objection to the amendment. I just wanted to point out where that language came from. That came from the letter from Guam Preservation Trust. This is all their language. So that was their recommendation. And I think my only concern is that whoever gets the property, they have to understand it's going to be like us and our transformation of the Guam Legislature, that these are still historic properties. They must be treated as historic properties. They cannot be, you know, we can't put up a sign out there or something else that in the Guam Preservation Trust's determination changes the integrity of the historical structure that they were trying or spent, you know, millions of dollars to redo or repair and restore. So that's all. It would just be, I'm sure that they will work that out, but whoever is the receiving entity at the end of all the work is going to have a big obligation on their hands as well to maintain that property and to keep its historical integrity intact. So no objection to that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Terlahi. On the amendment, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the amendment? Any objection? No objection. Seeing none, amendment passes. Senator Kanata? Is there? How about on the main motion? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Senator Duenas?
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chairman, and I certainly rise in full support of Bill 9737. You know, every single one of our villages on Guam has its own unique characteristics. But for some reason, there seems to be something just so special about Inarahan. I mean, when we look at the history, we look at, and I'll tell you, the village of Inalahan has been so fortunate to have just really great mayors over the years. That village is always so beautifully kept. Each one of them has, one after the other, has put their mark on what their values and how they wanted to continue to improve the village. And this is just going to be one more item to kind of add to the real mosaic, if you will, of Inalahan. You know, I constantly, when I go around the island and I see our guests as they stop at different locations, I think Inalahan probably gets the most time that our guests who come to Guam, and even just when I take people around from the States, they just want to kind of spend a little extra time down there. it's just a special place, and I'm so glad that the historic preservation is, when we had the public hearing, they made it clear, as one of the retiring speakers said, that, they've got to get moving on this to preserve the basic elements that are left in order to see this through. But once again, I just think that it seems like everything, especially the current mayor as well, Mayor Chagaloff, everything that we give, to them and that he's asked for, whether it comes from GVB or whether it comes from transfers from the legislature or whatever, is just such a dynamic can-do village. And of course, it's very special to myself and my family as well. But you have the St. Joseph's Church, which is really an icon as well. And then it was kind of interesting to listen to Polly Forbes during the testimony, saying, yeah, I'm here as a Capuchin, a Catholic priest. But he talked about the uniqueness and the special charm and value that Baptist church has brought to the island of Guam and, of course, to Inalahan. So I look forward to the day when this project gets underway and then eventually gets completed. And I got to say, I agree with the amendment that was passed, although I understand some of the concerns. I just think that also we've seen this particular council to just be so active. They're just people from Inalahan have a lot of ownership of their village, and I think that it's going to be fine going forward. But in the event there are some issues, I'm sure bodies in the future, and this August body will take up any concerns that come along. But I think it's good the way it's been amended and the way it is. And like I said, once again, I look forward to this bill passing and just another jewel in the crown of Guam and really in the beautiful village of Inalahan, in order to be able to continue to enhance it, not only for ourselves and for us and our future generations to understand the historic value, but for the guests that come to Guam. And that's going to add another half hour probably that they stay in Inalahan and take pictures and enjoy just that beautiful bay. And hopefully soon this newly restored historical monument. So with that, Mr. Chair, I want to thank the mover of the legislation for getting it done, and hopefully timely and soon coming forward, we'll all go down there and celebrate. Sidus Masi, Mr. Chairman.
Sidus Masi, Senator Duenas. On the main motion, Senator Lujan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand with full support and commend the author as well for introducing the bill. And what remains, of course, of the Inalahan Baptist Church, I don't know how much longer it's going to be, so the sooner that we pass this and sooner it gets transferred to the Guam Preservation Trust, the sooner they'll be able to get things going, because I don't know how much longer what remains is going to remain. And so with that being said, again, I just encourage my colleagues to, again, vote on this bill, and I'm sure they will. And once it's in the hands of the Preservation Trust, that they get moving on it, because, again, I don't know how much longer, and, we have these earthquakes that frequent our place, and I don't know what's going to take, again, for that place to no longer exist. So we want to act with urgency to be able to get this done. But thank you again, Mr. Speaker, and again, I stand in full support. I commend the author. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Lujan. On the main motion, Senator San Nicolas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to get up here and say thank you, Mr. Speaker, because we always say, and it's fine. So, I support this bill, and I want to be a co-sponsor. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator San Nicolas. Viva Inalahan. Speaker Terlahi, on the main motion.
Thank you. So this bill was reported out of our committee after quite a bit of work, and I just want to point out for those who are listening, the registered historic value of the Inalahan Baptist Church was for its architecture. So it was nominated for National Register of Historic Places as the Inalahan Baptist Church, built in 1925 for a small congregation of General Baptist Church parishioners residing in the southern villages of Guam. The significance of the church structure is its contribution to the architectural vernacular of the historic district of Inalahan. The architecture of the church depicts the Spanish-style features of massive walls and the mamposteria construction method of lime mortar and stone rubble. This method of construction is prevalent in Inalahan homes of the period. The walls are made of mamposteria and it had a metal roof. And like the village houses, the one-room church is elevated, no doubt a practical concept considering its nearness to the bay. Its last service was held in 1960. So that's from the historic records at Guam Preservation Trust as to the importance of this site. But Polly Eric, as my colleague pointed out, gave us some other insight to this property and its importance in his testimony when he described it as one of the few pre-war buildings that remain on island, and it is at its last stage before completely falling apart. So he says, quote, "It was unique for a Baptist community to exist on Guam during that time period, given the context of Guam being predominantly Catholic," stating that it's the story of the people that made that church very important, because when that church was built, you know, back before the war in the 1920s, when Guam was really strongly Catholic, to put a Baptist church right there in Inalahan, if that wasn't a challenge, then I don't know what was. So how that small Chamorro Baptist community in Inalahan had to negotiate through all of those social dynamics, you know, the drama that involved, that is a very important little chapter, but it's still a chapter of the story of our people. He also said that the building was important because Catholics had lost their cathedral because of the war and other church buildings. And, but this remains standing, and we can go back to the geographic location of our cathedral and our other churches, but this one, this is the place. This is the building. And so he was very proud of that, and so am I. So I stand in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker Terlahi. On the main motion, Senator Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's been a long time since we've had a Mr. Speaker up there, brief as it may be. But that used to be the standard, right? Late Senator Frank Santos, Mr. Speakers. I do remember those days, almost 40 years ago. But I do rise in support of Bill 97. I don't think any of us who grew up on Guam don't remember the little Baptist church at Inarahan. Even though I'm not from Inarahan, certainly memories of going down south. You knew you were entering the village when you saw that particular little church. And certainly I think we're all saddened to see over the years as a result of our weather, our typhoons, our earthquakes, we've seen the church, the Baptist church, deteriorate, and not much is left of it. I mean, when you drive by now, if you didn't take a second look, you wouldn't even know, because so much of the structure is no longer there. And I think we know that putting the Baptist Church in the hands of the Preservation Trust will be a very good thing, because we've seen all the projects that they put together. Hence this session hall that was abandoned for almost 25 years. I remember coming in here and seeing the birds fly around. Even though I spent many, many days here in youth leadership in this hall. But we've seen what efforts they can put together to restore historical buildings and continue to provide our island not just with the history, the very rich history that we have that unfortunately is a result of war and typhoons and everything else, so much has been lost. I think every opportunity that we have to see these facilities restored, and the opportunity for not just our children, because many of us have never really been in the structure when it was still a complete structure. I remember in my childhood going by. But a lot of our young people, you know, if we didn't restore this, would not have the opportunity to experience that. And I think that's something we need. We need to have a lot more pride in Guam and who we are, and even the mixed history that we have, whether you're Catholic, Baptist, whatever your religious faith is. I think we can all recognize, to see something as significant as that in the southern village of Guam and be able to see it restored back to its original design. And then also just to commend the mayor of Inalahan. I mean, I think for those of us that know, and I think we all do, Mayor Tony Chargaloff and his Municipal Planning Council, you can't not go through that village these days without taking not just a second, third, or fourth look, because he and his people down there have done an absolutely phenomenal job. I think that is what you want to see every village on Guam look like and feel like. And a lot of time and effort, a lot of sweat, a lot of heart has been put in to that particular village. It makes you almost want to live there, if we could all live in the village of Inalahan. So I certainly support this bill, and I look forward to the day of the ribbon cutting ceremony and be able to go in there, as all our residents will have the opportunity to go and see and learn the history and be able to see what it was like, goodness, almost 100 plus years ago when the building was originally built, what it was like. What did our residents back then experience sitting in this particular church? I'm sure we'll all find time to contemplate there, but I certainly support this bill and look forward to moving it forward and seeing the reconstruction. With that, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to comment on this bill.
Senator Brown. On the main motion, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the main motion? Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I think GPT definitely has the capability and expertise in ensuring that our historic sites are renovated and protected. But I would like to bring to light perhaps an issue that we should all consider in regards to transferring property, Government of Guam, real property, out of the assets of Government of Guam. And so one of the things to consider is that the impact, as you know, pursuant to the Organic Act, our borrowing power is tied to the cumulative land value of the government real property. And I believe this effort is definitely noble, but it's something that we should consider in this debate. And I think perhaps, in the committee report, it was stated that there are other options that can exist for GPT to make the necessary renovations. It was stated in the committee report that there could be one, a memorandum of agreement with the Guam Public Library System, or two, a leasehold. The other reservations about this bill was that this particular lot the title wasn't fully clear as to what is contained in this lot. Potentially, there are other historic properties that are contained in this lot. So, the power of the legislature has been to control land transfers, and who controls it. And I think this is a power that we need to take very seriously. Although this is a noble effort, I feel that the principle behind it is something that to consider. And I understand the mayor of Inalahan has done a great job with his village, and I think there's just other ways to attain this renovation besides transferring the land over to a non-governmental entity, despite their track record. And so I would like to make this amendment so that I feel that it's a win-win situation for everybody. And I just got off the phone with the director of Guam Public Library, as well as Mr. Kanata from the Guam Preservation Trust, presenting this idea to them. And they are both open to this memorandum of agreement approach so that the land still stays with the government, but the renovation still continues to get done. And so I would like to proffer this amendment. I believe it's on the drive. If we need a moment's recess to pass it out.
Thank you, Senator Perez. My apologies, colleagues. We're going to take a moment's recess, not just to get the amendment ready, but also AV needs to reset the microphone. So a short recess. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, yeah, I would like to proffer this amendment. So we'll bifurcate the amendment into Section 1 and Section 2. So the amendment reads, it's on line 7 to 21, page 2. The Guam Preservation Trust continues to preserve and protect our island's historic sites, culture, and perspectives for the benefit of our people of Guam and our future, through this measure granting authority to the Nieves Flores Memorial Library and the Guam Preservation Trust to enter into a memorandum of agreement relating to the Inalahan Baptist Church. So yeah, we had to make that correction of understanding to agreement. Ensures GPT's commitment to their continued efforts to restore, reconstruct, rehabilitate its front facade structure while still remaining its historical essence and venue for religious and fellowship activities. Y Legislature in Guam intends to authorize Nieves Flores Memorial Library and the Guam Preservation Trust to enter into a memorandum of agreement to Lot 106, formerly known as Inalahan Baptist Church, Municipality of Inalahan, Guam, for the purpose of stabilizing and restoring its historical structure that has been a public concern for its hazardous state and comprising the safety and well-being of local residents and visitors of Inalahan Village. The Guam Preservation Trust shall have, okay, that one should have been struck, I think. The last sentence probably should have been struck because they're basically getting into a memorandum of agreement. So the last sentence in, yeah, should have been struck. The last sentence of the, or should be struck because we're not transferring the authority. We're just allowing the library system to undergo a memorandum of agreement with the Guam Preservation Trust. So it's not, we're not transferring jurisdictional authority, but more ensuring there's an agreement. So again, the purpose is to, basically it's to answer the problem or the question of transferring government lands out of its inventory, which can have an impact to the borrowing capability of our government. And so so according to Organic Act, pursuant to the Organic Act, the debt ceiling is based on the assets of real property, and so if we're transferring land outside of the government of Guam, it could have an impact to the debt ceiling. And so this is I think that needs to be brought to the debate whenever we think of transferring land, no matter how noble this effort and no matter the track record of Guam Preservation Trust, the idea of transferring land out of our inventory can have this impact. So I just want to ensure that we're walking into this agreement or into this bill with our eyes wide open. So I ask for my colleagues' support. Again, we are going to, what this does, it changes the legislative intent, and I have a second amendment to follow through with what the intent is, to ensure that we hold on to the land as a government, but also ensure that the rehabilitation is going to take place as well. Considering there's still title issues as far as what is on this property. There's other things on this property that weren't intended to be transferred. And so this basically holds it more limited to the intent of the bill, which is to rehabilitate this historic property of the Baptist Church in Inalahan Village. And I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Senator Perez, on the amendment to Section 1. Senator Taitigui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I truly appreciate what the good senator of the amendment is trying to do here and how she's protecting us in every way we can. And it brought up a concern I had earlier regarding the Guam Preservation Trust. Is it a government entity? Is it a nonprofit organization? Why would not the Guam Preservation Trust that holds, the Humatek Elementary School, the church, some of the houses in Inalahan not belong to the government of Guam? I mean, they would be an entity that still preserves certain historical sites on the island, but wouldn't the property still be in the hands of the government of Guam or is owned by the government of Guam? Isn't there any opportunity for this body to actually take land that was given to the Preservation Trust and bring it back into the government of Guam? It's kind of, it's vague, you know, because we're talking about debt ceiling. We're talking about earlier protecting that debt ceiling. So I have a question to the author of the amendment, if she should yield.
Senator Perez, do you yield to the question? Oh, and please, I'm sorry, let's start over. Senator Tidegway, please state your question.
Okay, the question is, does the property that's in the Guam Preservation Trust that has been given to them by this body, is that still belong to the government of Guam, or can this body actually go in and take, like in Alahan, I mean not in Alahan, but Humatic Elementary School that we turned over to the Guam Preservation Trust, can this body actually take back and put it into government of Guam property?
Wow. Senator Perez, do you yield to the question?
That's a very good question. If I can have a moment's recess to do a little research on that one and ask legal for that clarification.
That's okay. Recess. Short. We're back from recess. So there had been a question posed, but Senator Taitigui, now I understand you want to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm going to withdraw my question. I think we found a common ground for everyone to a win-win situation, as the good senator mentioned earlier. And so I'll withdraw my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. So I believe we're on the amendment to Section 1. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the amendment to Section 1? Senator St. Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't have a total objection to the amendment, but I am drafting an amendment. This bill's intention is to give it to Nalan and work with the Preservation Trust, which its responsibility is to restore historical sites. Let's start with that. Number two, the amendment is going to strike out the Nevis Flores Memorial Library, give the property first to Iran, and let the MOU, exactly what the author of this amendment is, a strong amendment was to keep it within the government's inventory. Yes, keep it in the government inventory, but it'll be under the Inalahan Municipal Planning Council or the Inalahan Mayor's Office, that they have ownership. They do an MOU with the Guam Preservation Trust, do the historical restoration, and then they move on from there. Keeps the property under GovGuam, maintains exactly what the author brought up, except we're just switching it, taking away from the library, give it to Nalan. Nalan, you will do an MOU with the Guam Preservation Trust. That will be my amendment, and it's forthcoming very soon. They're just working it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator St. Augustine. Okay, we're on the amendment to Section 1. Senator Fisher, did you want to be recognized? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker. The way I read the amendment, the measure grants authority to the library and the Guam Preservation Trust, and the legislature intends to authorize the library to do certain things, and the library is authorized to enter into a memorandum of agreement related to the property. Reading the amendment, it is clear that there is nothing mandatory here. So, for example, the library could decide not to enter into the memorandum, and so could Guam Preservation Trust. And if that were the case, either both or neither side decided to enter into the memorandum of understanding, then we would be back to status quo with no one taking care of the Baptist Church. And I have a question for the author of the amendment, and the question is this. Ma'am, do you agree with my assessment of the amendment?
Senator Perez, do you yield to the question?
Yes, I yield. So, yeah, the intent is to allow them to have a memorandum of agreement to carry out this partnership. But I can also, I'm open to changing the language so that it's more, it mandates them rather than more of a, not, yeah. I'm open to making some changes to make sure this happens.
Senator Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. And that does answer my question. I would guess that the language would be changed from authorized to shall, or some iteration thereof, because nothing, under the way we've structured the law, it's entirely possible that nothing will happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. On the amendment to Section 1, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the amendment? Speaker Terlahi, you're recognized.
Yes, I stand in support of this amendment, but I'd like to get a 1-minute recess. I just want to confirm with legal that we are, remember when the bill was amended by committee, and I think this amendment, I'm not sure, I want to make sure this reflects that, but the changes that were made from Nieves to Government of Guam, because the property was deeded to Nieves Flores Library, but as the testimony came in from Department of Land Management, there was a subsequent law that said all property like that would be transferred to be owned by the government of Guam. So it was owned by the government of Guam. It's included in the government of Guam's roles for tax purposes and debt service purposes. So that's all. But however, this is the intent. We're only right now talking about the intent. So when it says it intends to do this and intends, that's because this is the intent section of the bill. So I have no objection to how it's written here. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Terlahi. We will take a short recess while we figure this out. we're back. I'm going to call recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'll see you then, colleagues.